Alright, so I'm picking up where we left off. We have this text box that is animating across our screen. One thing that I want to mention is we can move these diamonds. So again, I did talk that the farther apart they are, the slower it is, but you can just move them by clicking and dragging on them. So I can just drag this closer and you're going to see how much faster that happens. All right, your computer, Premiere Pro, uses a lot of resources with your computer, so things are going to look a little glitchy, I guess. They're going to be a little, um, a little choppy, but the final end result when we export this will not be like that. You might have to play it a few times in order for it to Premiere in your computer to get caught up and for things to get a little bit more smooth. Okay, so and again, a quick review. We always move the playhead to the beginning of whatever it is we're going to apply a keyframe to. We set its starting position. Then we click the stopwatch. Then we move the playhead to where we want it to end, and then we set the end value or position, whatever it might be. Okay, so you're going to follow that process every time you want to apply a keyframe to something. All right, so I want to show you some other things that we can do. I'm going to just come up here to this triangle and minimize that text box. We can have more than one text box or component assigned to a layer. So in this case, I'm going to take another text, I'm going to create another text box by selecting my text tool and just maybe right below it I'm going to click and drag another text box. Alright, and this is going to act as the subtitle, so you'll notice before I even start typing in our effect controls panel it added another text box there. So now these things will move together somewhat at least. So let me type something in here first. And I'm just going to do some editing here. Okay, so all I did, again, just some basic editing here. If we scrub our playhead back and we play this, we'll notice that only one of these is animated. All right, so one that tells us a couple of things. that tells us one, we can animate these so that way each individual component can have a different look. All right. I'm also going to show you a way to get them to move all together in case you want that to happen. But I'm going to start by just showing you if we wanted them to be different, what that would look like. All right, so one thing we could do now, let's say we wanted the bottom one to start off here, the sub to start off the screen, and we're going to have it move up. All right, so again, we're setting our initial position. I'm going to click the blue position, the blue stopwatch here, and then I'm just going to move this. And one thing, I want to coordinate this with my other text. So you can see that there's a little circle there. I'm going to just move my playhead so it lines up with the circle of this other text because I want them to both come in at the same time. And now I'm going to set the position of my subtitle. And so we can just check that out. And there we go. I'm going to go through it a few times just so it's a little smoother. There we go. So that's looking pretty good. All right, so that's one way that you could do this. So that way you have multiple moving components that all have their own unique behaviors. If we minimize these little triangle things, You can see that they're lined up for the most part, um, and that's just how you can kind of create timing between different elements. All right, I'm going to show you a different strategy to doing this. Let's say you wanted them to all move in the same direction. I'm just going to copy this over, and you can do that too. The keyboard shortcut is the Alt-Option key on a Mac, um, and it should be the same on a PC. And so now we just have two copies. You could always right-click copy, right-click paste too. All right, so with this, what I'm going to do, the first thing I'm going to show you is how to remove an animation. So I'm going to come into the first text box. If I click the blue stopwatch again, it's going to ask us if we want to remove that. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So that's the first thing. I'm going to do that to both of my text elements. Just going to go open them up, find the position, and remove that. Okay, notice how the diamonds disappear. That tells us that they're no longer have any sort of keyframe. If I play this text box, they're not moving. Okay, nothing's going on. All right, so let's say we want these to move together. In that case, we don't want to adjust the position, the text position, all right, because that's like an individual element. In this case, we want everything on the layer to move together, and so we're going to manipulate this heading, the vector motion. So that includes everything that's on this layer. We could have 50 text boxes on here, and everything's going to move together. So in this case, I'm going to take our position, I'm going to move it off the screen, I'm going to click the little blue timer, move to an end position, and just move it back on. And now everything's going to move together. And we can scrub through that one more time. And there we go. Okay, so let's look at maybe something else we can add. So we have text. Let's look at shapes. So you have this pen tool here. Let's click and hold on that. You can see the rectangle tool below it. And just go ahead, click and drag a box here. And look in your effect controls, you're going to see now that we have a shape and two text boxes. The shape is covering our text. So that's our first problem here. These will appear from top down. So since this is on top, think of it as pieces of paper stacked on top of each other. This is covering everything else below it. So in order to change that, you can just click on the word shape and drag it down. You can see this blue line telling us where it's going to go. We're going to put this at the bottom below the two texts and just let go. And there it is. So now we can see our text. And I'm going to open this up so that way I can make some edits to this shape. We can go ahead and change the color of this, and we can adjust its individual position here. And if you want to resize this, we can always come back to our selection tool, and if we highlight the main shape here in our effect control, it'll bring up the little bounding box options. So we can just resize it if you need to. And let's just look at some of these other options in the effect control panel. So this shape has its own transform component, which gives us position for just this shape, its own scale, rotation, all the same options as we saw in our text. So let's just scrub through this again, you're going to see, again, this animation is applied to everything on the layer. So um, it's all working together. All right, I'm going to layer this a little bit more just to add a little detail to it. I'm going to create another shape, and I'm going to do another rectangle, just slightly slightly bigger to the right. I'm going to move this to the back so you can see I just want a little sliver here that's visible. We have right now one keyframe on here that animates the whole layer. All right, and we did that with vector motion. Okay, that animates everything on the layer. But I also want to show you that we can still animate the individual components within that layer. So one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to select my subtitle here, my subtext, and I'm just going to open that up. And I'm going to come down to, right now you have something on here that says uniform scale. I'm going to uncheck that. Uniform scale means if we were to make it bigger, it just proportionally make it bigger. I'm going to uncheck that because I only want the horizontal scale to change. So I'm going to come up here and move my playhead. And again, we can begin to coordinate animations this way. So we know that this is when the layer, everything in the layer stops. It gets to its stopping point. So I'm just going to put my playhead there so that way I can coordinate this. And I'm going to come down here. I'm going to change the horizontal scale. So I'm going to check that stopwatch because it was already in the position we wanted it to. This creates the diamond shape. I'm going to move it forward a little bit, and maybe we'll do a subtle little, it's going to grow a little bit, and then it's going to shrink. Okay, so I'm going to have it grow just a little bit and move the playhead forward again and then collapse it. So we can have more than one animation going on at a time. I'm going to just move this so it's a little faster. So I'm going to just play through that. And there we go. So if you need to zoom in here, again, it's got its own slider here. That operates the same as our other slider. If you take the two circles and drag them closer together, you can zoom in. And I want this to be a quick animation. Okay, so just giving you some ideas of different things that you could do. And I'm just going to, again, give you the overview of what this looks like. I just collapsed everything here. We have a keyframe up here in vector motion. If we wanted to see exactly what in there is animated, we could open that up and you'll see which properties the diamonds are applied to. And we can see that there's something going on here with this text box. Again, we could open that up and see what properties that is applied to. And then we can just close that back up. So you can have all kinds of keyframes applied, doing all kinds of things. This is where we can build some complex shapes and just different things. But again, the concepts are really kind of basic. So I just want you to do a Google image search for lower thirds. Right? That's basically what we just created. There are all kinds of lower thirds here. And it'll spark a lot of ideas for you. All right, what I want you to do is create your own. All right, we can reuse this in future projects. There's always going to be a need for these little titles. So go ahead, I want you to create something unique. All right, it's got to be different from what we made together. Change up the colors. Use one of these as inspiration. Okay, it could be, they're usually somewhat, simplistic. You got to be able to read the text, um, but have fun with it. Be creative with it. You notice some of these people have logos in there, like so you could think ahead and think of like your YouTube channel that you'll create third quarter, and you could put a logo in there if you want. But I want you to have fun with it. Create an animated lower thirds. It should come in from some direction. It should have some sort of animation, and then leave the scene too. All right, so um, that's what I'm looking for. When you're done with that, the next video I'm going to show you how to export this. So you're not going to submit anything for this assignment, but you will need to complete it in order to do your next assignment.